In an interview, Berlusconi says he'll step down.
Welcome back to Heavy Storms, everyone, and I know it's been a while, and I know it's not the terrible shoujo thing we promised before, but long story short, it was 26 episodes, and I should have put in a quarter limit when starting the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I just could not get a panel to actually sit down and watch that entire thing, so fuck it.
And somehow you got 3 people to watch this.
Well, we did get paid.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Heavy Storms is moving to a new, it's by commission now. You can actually pay us a hard fee, and we will cover whatever show you want us to that's on Crunchyroll and airing in the US, so at least everyone can fairly easily find it.
Yeah.
Especially me, since I tried to do this legally. And thankfully, they have a lot of garbage on there. And I don't just mean Shield Hero, because I know eventually someone's going to fucking request that.
I was amazed. This is 2005. I was amazed to see this on here.
Well, it makes more sense when you realize who the person was who commissioned this episode. I'm not sure if you guys... I'm not sure... I don't remember if you two were around for the D2 Brigade.
I wasn't.
No.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I figured. Well, back in my forum days on that website many, many years ago, I met a guy named Itchiander who did, like, anime streams and even made custom ads and bumpers for them, which was pretty cool. And he's knows a lot about old anime, especially from the OVA era.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, he would have known about this fucking pile. Yes, if you want to commission an episode, go ahead and check the description. There should be a link for more information. It's $100. The split is I get 40 since I'm doing the editing, and the 2 panelists I get 30.
Yay.
And that is basically how it works. So now let's talk about this fucking... Oh my god. Koi Koi 7. Wow. Fuck.
Yes. Koi Koi 7, even though there's 6 of them. That's the joke.
This requires a lot of backstory, so you will understand where this is coming from. This is, as we mentioned, a 2005 show. This is vintage bad anime. Not like OVA vintage, but for TV, this is like one of the few... this is one of the era where the West was finally starting to actually be able to watch like shows as they aired in Japan, if not legally. Also, it's basically a cross-combination of like 3 dying trends and 1 trend that was about to explode and take over anime for several years. There's a lot of Neon Genesis Evangelion in there,
Yes.
and by that I mean people taking the wrong lessons from it because it is the Watchmen of anime.
Yeah.
The awful ecchi comedy trend like Green, oh god, remember Green?
I know.
Girls Bravo,
Yeah.
which I think a title of the show actually
one of the
references.
episodes was like Bravo Girls or whatever.
Yeah, and of course Love Hina, which Joe initially pointed out.
Yeah.
The greatest scourge.
Well, here's the thing about Love Hina. It was the greatest anime in 2000. Like, if you looked at magazine surveys, a lot of top 10 anime ever had Love Hina, and you'll get that a lot. Every 10 years there'll be a new one. Like 2010 was probably Haruhi Suzumiya, and now it's not there anymore. But Love Hina was the one of 2000.
Some fun news just came up on my feed earlier. The guy who directed Suzumiya, I think it was during the bad season. He had a meltdown. He's also the guy who directed Fractal. Yeah. And I found out when Fractal was airing that he bet that everything on it and said he would quit the industry if it failed. And of course, it failed because it was an old man yelling at the cloud for like 13 episodes, and then everyone on Twitter asked him if he was just kept bugging him, like, hey, why haven't you quit yet? And he apparently had a meltdown recently. Is very mad at Kyoto Animation because they actually removed him from Lucky Star direction because they felt he did not have the talents to be a director on that production. And now he's just into Meltdown. He's like, I'm quitting anime forever.
Well then,
we've lost very little. What's less funny is that he appears to be bankrupt.
Yeah, sad. So sad. But he kind of did that to himself, which is...
But anyways, back to this fucking travesty.
Yeah, speaking of doing this to ourselves...
and of course, the fourth trend I was hinting of was the trend that eventually took over anime for, like, a very long time, and I was amazed how many people did not realize just how much of anime became this, the emoto trend.
Yeah. It doesn't start out that way, and I was like, it was kind of nostalgic. It was like bad anime from an earlier era, and then it goes that direction.
Yeah. And of course, it all came to an end once Orihime, or however you pronounce it, had its last episode, and everyone was like, oh, it's not a show about incest, it's just a funny comedy, and then it ends with incest. The guy who made that is still making emoto novels, and one of them got another fucking adaptation recently.
Yeah, but
at least the trend is dead.
But this also was at the crossroads of Moe, when Moe was starting to be a big thing, and they didn't really know what to do with it, so a lot of the older directors were making things like Elven Lied, which that was how they were putting Moe into anime series. So this show is sitting here at the crossroads about 4 or 5 things, and it needs to decide what it wants to do with itself.
And the funniest part comes when you look in...
Well, yeah. What I would say is it sits there in the crossroads, and it gets hit by a bus.
When I searched Koi Koi 7, it was like, people searching for this also look for Rizzlemine. And then that's not a good sign.
It should be mentioned, this is actually an anime adaptation of a manga created by one Morishige, who is known for making ecchi comedies that have, in quotation, serious issues in them. His other works include Suzaku, which is just sake, but the manga is strip manga. I mean, the mahjong is strip mahjong, sorry. There's another series called Fudanshi Shugi, which is a rom-com about a pretty guy pretending to be a Fujoshi via cross-dressing to get closer to a Fujoshi gothic Lolita. Because... and there's like 2 different made ecchi comedies and just outright lolicon porn on that list.
Apparently the manga was in Champion Red, which I've heard rumors about it being like one of the more garbagier manga magazines.
That sounds about right. And just looking at his list of works helps me figure out a few things about this series. This is just a gross fetishist dude who doesn't know how to engage with anything without a fetish being involved or just ripping off Evangelion. Oh boy. The manga actually ran from 2002 to 2007, and this anime aired only in 2005, so the ending we'll eventually rage about is anime original, so I will spare the manga that, but I will say I looked on TV Tropes, and while I couldn't actually figure out what the manga ending was because they just stopped translating it at volume 5 instead of going all the way into 9, like, scan translators gave up.
Yeah.
They gave up. I'm amazed it stuck in for so long. Well, all I could figure out was that it was also confusing and disappointing, but not nearly as what the fuck is the anime was, and it involved the hot springs. So
yeah. The big thing about this is where do we start and where do we end? Because it is a mess of structure from the very first thing.
I'm going to go ahead and go down all the background info I got because there's more here than you'd expect.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
I'm going to throw some surprises at you. First off, the studios behind this, there were 2. One was Studio Flag, a small studio that doesn't seem to be famous for anything at all.
It's on Wikipedia, the Studio Flag link is red. There's no page for it. I haven't heard of them for anything else.
Yeah, I had to use Anne, and it looks like they just help out with other projects.
Yeah.
And the other studio involved is Trident Entertainment, which is kind of in a similar boat. The most notable names I saw on their list were Baldur Force EXE, some harem crap called Final Approach, and the shocker for me, Red Garden.
Huh. That's the Mariakata zombie series, right?
The I think it was like vampire and werewolves, but the werewolves never actually transform. They're just regular people who jump around like dogs, and it looks silly. And there's like random musicals because it takes place in New York.
Yeah, okay, that's the one.
That was a blast from the past, and that's actually fairly notable. So, okay. The director was Yoshitaka Fujimoto, who, it's a lot of crap, including La Blue Girl and, of course, a lot of pornography, smut comedies, magical girl ecchi parody show called Cyber Team in Akibara that I swear I've heard of before.
Oh my god, that I never saw that, but I heard of that, and that's supposed to be like legendarily bad from back in the 90s.
Oh yeah,
I believe it.
Some of the older people will like speak of it in hushed tones, and that's all you hear about it. It's like Cyber Team in Akibara. No.
Is it as bad as Mad Bull 34 or MD Geist?
Well, see, Mad Bull 34 and MD Geist are hilariously bad. I'm not sure about Cyber Team in Akibara is bad. I mean, I've seen...
It's probably awful.
I've seen the DVD discs.
He actually did 2 normal shows that seem fairly notable. Mech sci-fi series called Shin Shikenden Mars, and a regular old mermaid-themed magical girl series called Mermaid Melody Pitchy Pitchy Pitch.
That's supposed to be good. I think there was a story about ADV or someone trying to license that, and it somehow fell through, but I think there was a full dub of it made. But it never...
Yeah, the reviews on Anne for the Mars show were low, but for Pitchy, it looked fine. Oh, and I also left out one very important one, Master of Martial Arts.
Oh, God.
Yep, I'm not surprised.
No.
Nope. And he's also an episode director of Arjuna, which I think is my worst anime of all time now. I'm not sure if... I'd have to watch them again, and I don't want to, but it might have overtaken Noir. I'm not sure.
You put Noir on your worst anime list?
Yeah. It is boring as shit.
Dude, you've seen Magical Warfare with me.
Yes, I know, but...
Anyways, I wrote down the episode 6 director was Kazuhiro Yonada, who would go on to direct Yona of the Dawn, of all things. Okay. And the episode 11 director was Takashi Kimura, who never did anything else after this and only made a short 4-minute film before it. And somehow he ended up directing the best episode of the show, so... Okay.
Yeah, it should be noted the writers, Aya Yashiro, this is her only credit on the ANN. And Tomatsu Mizukoshi has a similar... He has more, but the biggest thing is Kaze no Yohimbo, which is just a remake of Yojimbo. So,
yep.
That's it.
When you get into voice cast, though, it kind of gets interesting at a few points. The main character was Tetsuro Tanaka, or as I just call him, the harem lead, was voiced by Yuki Tai, who was... I was surprised by this, the voice of Dipper in Gravity Falls in the Japanese dub, and was the title character of Shivar Dion. I hope I'm pronouncing that one right. It was that sort of anime version of the tale of trans woman who tricked the France government or something. Oh, I don't really know much about the tale, but that's like an actually good show. So yay. Yao Asaka, the Moe baby, who for some reason might be a turf, that confused me, was voiced by Saruri Goto, who was Q in Sea Control, aka that card battle show that was about capitalism, and Moe from Steins Gate, the quiet woman who had the cell phone. So that shows she has range. That's surprising. Then we get to this big surprise, Sakuya Kazi Matsuri, who was played by Ayako Eito. Sakuya is the tomboy girl, understand if you don't know her name at all. Her voice actress was actually an animator with a fairly extensive list of animation credits.
Huh.
Has done very little voice work, and the most notable voice she's done is Cory from Cory in the House. Which amuses me to no end.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. The character who seems to be some sort of parody of like Chikane from Kazuni no Miko, the girl with the hair power, Miyabi Tsukuyomi, was played by Akio Kawase, who has lots of roles but little stick out, unfortunately. At least to me. Hifumi Noka, that green hair girl who's now my Twitter avatar, who never actually gets a personality except in the 2 good episodes, was played by Kimiko Koyama, who was the Emoto Witch character in Rosio plus Vampire, and a character in Zoid's Genesis, a major one, which is neat. I have not seen Zoid Genesis, but it looks interesting to me, because I like Zoids.
Lots of people from Zoids worked on this series too.
Oh yeah. Let's see, Akio Suzuka, the Sentai nerd, was voiced by Yuko Gibu. Few standout roles once again. Let's see. Otomo Chrono, the girl I thought was going to be a robot but wasn't, was played by Yuna Inamura, who voiced the love interest in the Reborn anime. Reborn was that Shonen Jump manga about a guy who has like a little chibi mafia fairy thing who like shoots him. I don't know much about it. Okay, now strap in, because I have a lot to say about this one. Solonius 28, aka Yaoi 2, will explain it later, was voiced by Nana Mizuki, who has been Anne in Persona 5, Carly in the iCarly dub, Coilette in Tales in Symphonia, Fate in the Nanoha series, Hinata in Naruto, Katniss in the Hunger Games dub, Paz in Metal Gear Solid 5, Rebecca in Wild Arms 5, Iga Oboro in Basilisk, a character in Black Butler, I'm not going to bother pronouncing that, Vanessa in Black Clover, Evangelion Yamamoto in Blast of Tempest, Michelle Watch in Blood Blockade Battlefront, Saya in Blood Sea, Anji in Cross Anji, Cure Blossom in Precure, Wrath in FMA 2003, Ashishin from Medaka Box, which barely appeared in that anime because it stopped right when she appeared, but that's like the most important character in Medaka Box. Rue in Princess Tutu, Mocha from Rosario plus Vampire, Pandora in the series of Saint Sienna movies, and Tsubasa in Symphogear. So yeah. Kind of a big name. Which explains why she gets the fucking insert song.
Yeah.
And let's see, we also have the teacher character, apparently her name is Ori Kano, okay, is voiced by Akio Kimura, who is the visual voice of Mega Man EXE from the Battle Network series, which was cool. She voiced someone in High School DxD, but I don't recognize her name, and I've seen 3 seasons of that show, so that's concerning to me. She voiced someone in Keijo, the butt show, the butt sports show. They fight with the butts, and there's like a Gate of Babylon, but with butts. And she did some voice in Millennium Actress, but I don't know who. Let's see, another barely credits one with Mia, the best character, basically the Ojo-sama, the rich girl who's self-obsessed. She's voiced by Tsubasa Otomiya, and she barely's done anything, it's a shame.
She was the best character.
And the last person I bothered to learn the name of their voice actor, because who gives the fuck about the rest of these characters? It's Tetsu's awful garbage dad, aka not Gendo Ikari, is played by Mitsuru Miyamoto, who was Maiza in Bakano, Roger Smith in The Big O, Barrett, and of course, Barrett in Fractal. Oh, and also a character in Fruits Baskets. So, but yeah, Fractal.
Yeah.
But I did not bother to learn anyone else, and I could have checked the name of the voice actresses for the lesbian couple, but what's the point?
Yeah. There's also legendary voice actor Norio Wakamoto. If you look at their...
Oh, I forgot about
Yeah, he was
him.
the headmaster who is just, the guy who sits in the chair and his face looks like a nutsack. And it's just like, bad things are coming.
Wakamoto.
He had like 5 minutes
They
worth of
wasted
scenes, right? He was not very prominent.
Less than that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Less than that. They wasted him more than they wasted him in Blood Lad, and he didn't appear until the very end of Blood Lad.
Okay.
And I like Blood Lad though, but waste of your Wakamoto. This series is a journey. I want to go by it episode by episode, so you understand where we're coming from.
Well, there's no story, so you kind of have to do it episode by episode because there's no like recognizable arc. It's
very weird because the manga was well into its run at this point. They should have had enough material to at least have the concept of a plot.
Well, it starts out with the idea that like there's a guy and there's a harem, and you meet all the girls in the harem, but it stops introducing them like after 3, and then it just goes on its own journey.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how much of it is anime original material. Okay, so episode 1 is the basic setup, and it begins in a very confusing way where there's just attack helicopters shooting missiles at 2 girls on a bike you don't know yet. And, like, the rich girl is mad about this, and she's like, enemies with the girls on the bike? What? There's the dumb idiot on the flagpole, and then you finally get to the harem, and you're like, oh, it's this kind of show. And then, like, a helicopter crashes and explodes, and that makes all the panties flash.
Well, see,
like,
the helicopter crashes, and it blows all their skirts up to the left. And then a second helicopter crashes, and it blows all their skirts up to the right.
And, of course, you list out the color of all the panties.
And we've kind of passed this, but this is... The harem protagonist here is, like, the real thick glasses... Melvin from Sailor Moon type. He's not the kind of cool guy like Kirito from Sword Art Online or the new nihilistic hero from Shield Hero or whatever. He's just a full nerd, and we don't see that anymore.
Was just like what harem leads were back then.
Yeah.
This is the dying breath of the Tenchi era.
It was very Love Hina, where he was a nice enough guy, but it also acknowledged that he was a severe pervert. And it also does that thing where they're obviously pairing him with one person, like the pink-haired Yayoi, but they also have to try to pass him off to the other ones to give them a chance of shipping, even though it's not going to work, which was very Love Hina, very Iori Aoshi at the time.
So it's amusing that they just kind of gave up on actually creating a harem.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so... Episode 1, then, of course, the rich girl and her friends have the giant robots. Because, sure. And then all the harem girls are fighting the giant robots, but you're confused at this point. Because, why do they have powers? Why does one of them just shoot guns? One of them's a robot. 2 of them appear to be super strong. Okay. And one of them jumps really high. Okay. And one just has angel wings.
So, I mean,
what?
You have a harem.
And the hair.
You have like a Sentai superpower thing. You have a mecha. It reminds me of like one of those anime...
Well, it doesn't even... Well, remember, in episode 1, it doesn't even establish she has Sentai superpowers or anything. She's just strong and jumps high.
It reminds me so much of like one of those parody anime from like Genshiken or Shirobako. That's like... This is what anime is like, right? Isn't this funny? Mm-hmm. But it's a serious show. Because eventually I was looking it up and it's like, is this like a parody? Is this like a Kujibiki Unbalanced thing where it's like, this is supposed to be, having fun with tropes? And it's like, no, this is just based on a manga.
Oh.
And also one of the big things that was influential at the time was the Charlie's Angels movie, which it's strange. It's like how... City of Fire was largely influential in the 80s, even though a lot of people haven't heard of the movie. And then in the 2000s, it was the Charlie's Angels movie. Like, R.O.D. was... The TV series was heavily influenced by it. And it was just snuck into anime for whatever reason. So it's just this attitude of how Roger Ebert put Charlie's Angels. Like, what is it? A satire of what? Of satires, I guess. So it's just all of these things smashed together, and if you take it seriously, fine. But if you don't, it's just like, oh, it's tongue-in-cheek and joke because it's making reference to it, but it's having fun with it. Because there's, like, Gundam references, there's Go Lion references, there's... Later on, we have Space Battleship Yamato, and just so many little things, and they're direct visual references, but there's no joke. There's no joke at it. There's not an attempt to make fun of it. This exists. And we pointed out, this exists, so it's funny. So it's like those mid-2000 like disaster movie and those kind of things. So that everything just falls flat.
I think the only 2 episodes that have constantly at least acceptable jokes are 6 and 11, and it's very clear that there was very different staff on those, even just down to the animation.
Oh yeah.
But I think if you take out those 2 episodes, I think there was 4 actually funny jokes in the entire series.
It's throwing so much stuff at the wall. Some of the jokes have to hit, and a couple of them do, and they belong in a better show. But most of it is just bad.
The problem is that of those the 11 episodes that are not those 2 good episodes, there are only 4 good jokes. I actually counted on Twitter, and this is a series that is mostly jokes. So, yeah. Welcome to hell.
Yeah.
And of course, episode 1 ends with it turns out he has to move into a dorm with all the girls, and the pink-haired one has already decided they're gonna do it later, and has broken down her fucking wall to get into his room and takes a shower bath with him in episode 2. And it's like,
And his teacher, his female teacher, is like the dorm supervisor. So that's the harem set up there.
She's very pointless. I thought she was going to be a Christmas cake at first, but then she just doesn't really do anything. And then when she finally does get backstory in episode 12, I wish it didn't happen.
Yeah,
it's stupid, and she's just another character who's like, bad things are about to happen, and just another 3 or 4 characters who are foreshadowing bad things are happening. That's all they exist for.
Episode 2, it's more wacky shenanigans. Do you want any sort of foundation for what this show is? No, go fuck yourself, buddy. You don't get that. Here's more wacky shenanigans. Look, we put the male main character in like a shibari bondage rope. Isn't that funny? Are you laughing? And now we're at a pool and the girls are wearing bathing suits and the rich girl wants people to pay attention to her and we repeat this joke like 4 times. Are you laughing yet? Hey, look here. Oh my god, we forgot to mention the lesbian couple in episode 1. No. I don't want to remember that.
Okay. I can talk about them if you would like.
Go ahead.
So we have Sato and Yamada, and Yayoi is first giving the harem guy the tour, and everywhere he goes, it's like, here's the women's bathroom, and it's like, ah! And it's like, here's the shower, ah! And then, okay, after he needs to recover from that, they have to go to the clinic, so there's Sato and Yamada, who are 2 women who only exist in this series to either be like the commentators for whatever events happening, like a swimming tournament or a battle tournament or something, or they're making out with each other. By
episode 2, they're already commenting on how weird it is that they're doing this at all, and it makes me mad.
Yeah, how they are pointless characters on the outside. Yeah, but their main draw is that they make out with each other every time they're on screen. Like, they're gonna have, oh no, you look hurt, here, let me take this off, and then, oh, that is some fancy underwear, and then they kiss, and it's like, oh, we shouldn't be doing this, and then that's it, that's the scene.
But you forgot to mention in episode 1 it was outright sexual assault.
Oh yeah, because she said she didn't want to, and she's like, I don't want to do this. And that happens a couple times.
Yeah, one of them's an open lesbian, and the other is a closet lesbian. Yeah. And then episode 12 happens, and I'm mad.
She writes like fanfic too, or she writes like novels. And so it's,
she writes fan fiction, then sells it, and then when Tetsuro looks at it, she's like, "Oh no, don't look at that!" And it's just like, "Well, you wrote it. You're selling it in the open. What you don't want people? I don't." There's such a better character in Trails of Cold Steel, who is literally a smut writing, person, and all of this thing is just making me think of better series, except for they're not really better series. They're terrible series that I had to watch when I did seasonals, and somehow these do it better than this one.
Yeah. Episode 2, of course, the wacky shenanigans. The one line I think that almost destroyed me emotionally was when Akio is fighting with the girl with the big drill hairs, who for some reason ends up being kind of important later. They're giving each other wedgies at that point, and the joke is, oh, they're doing perverted thing by accident, and the other characters point it out, and then eventually she actually fucking says, and this is a time to win, not a time to feel good. And
Alright.
It's the episode tried to have some sort of character development for our main character, because oh no, everything here is weird and I feel like I don't belong. And then the Moe baby is nice.
The Wikipedia has a good line. Fed up with the girls fighting over him, to say nothing of them flaunting their underwear, Tetsuro calls his father and asks to be transferred to another school, but is told to stick it out.
Oh yeah, now that we mention it, I think they had a completely different plan for the dad arc, because that's clearly not the guy who turns out to be his dad later on the phone.
Yeah. His dad is actually Kendo Akari, but we'll get to that.
So many times during this show, I felt like I missed something, or I was too tired, or something was wrong with me, but from talking about it before recording, that's just the show.
Yeah. But
so if we struggle to recollect it's because it's very hard to piece this back together.
And episode 2, remember during episode 2, they're also doing the foreshadowing with the extremely important edgy girl, aka the other Asuka, and who doesn't look like Asuka at all, and is just a white-haired girl with a cloth eye patch.
Yeah, she's got
anime.
The medical eye patch, and
yeah. She briefly appears in episode 1 and says something about knowing the main character. You don't really get anything. In episode 2, she goes full on crawling in my skin, these wounds they cannot heal, and whatever that Evanescence song was.
Wake Me Up Inside?
Yeah, and just drowns herself in a pool while wearing her school uniform. And at the end of the episode, she's in a dark place somewhere with her uniform off because she got it wet with her fucking moping session and shivering it's your fault. Why did you do that? All her scenes are like this.
So, yeah. So at this point, there are a couple things. One, the real reason this series was made was because in the second episode, there's nudity right off the bat. So what you're going...
Yep.
What its selling point is that you can see tits. The tits are there. They're not blurred out or anything. But you're going to regret seeing the tits a little later. We'll get to that. And the other thing is there are just plot points thrown all over the place that may pay off, maybe may not. Because Tetsuro has memory loss. So all of these people remember Tetsuro and that he is important. But he doesn't. He doesn't remember anybody. He doesn't remember any of this. And
I actually forgot that.
It has every single anime trope ever, but it forgets some of them. But it literally has every trope. That's why I thought it had to be a parody.
By episode 1, I was already making jokes that this is just bad proto witchcraft works, but then they just kind of forget the amnesia thing. Okay.
Yeah, and
payoff. What's that?
And it's just Tetsuro and, Yayoi are important, and they need to be important to be together, and that kind of pays off, but doesn't really. And they kind of don't even establish why the two groups are fighting each other. Like, we have Mia's group, who's like the Goko.
Goko
group.
5, and there's actually 5 of them.
Yeah, and then there's the Koi
and
7.
they're all very good.
And there's 6 of them. And they're fighting each other because... And I am giving you more establishment than they are.
The Goko 5 they describe themselves as like the rich girl Sentai, so it's like an Ojo-sama squad, and they're definitely the most entertaining group.
Oh yeah,
in the show.
I love all of them and wish for them the best, and it should have been in a better show. I'm also pretty sure they're all gay.
Yeah,
Mia definitely is.
But we'll get to that.
Episode 3, moving on, and this is finally a character-focused episode with Akio, and she briefly mentions in one line that she's a cyborg. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's your gimmick. Mm-hmm. I did not realize that was the anime's way of telling us they're all cyborgs. We had to wait another episode before we figure that shit out, apparently. The basic premise of the show. Okay. She basically the Super Sentai and all that stuff. The green hair girl calls her a nerd sometimes. And it almost works as a character building episode, even and like our terrible harem protagonist even gets to manage to do something semi-heroic and help Akio out, which was nice. But of course, it's in the context of one of Mia's new robots being malprogrammed by her compatriots, and now it's stealing the uniforms and underwear of high school girls. So,
and it's called the Kinky Monster.
It was apparently designed to humiliate the Koi 7, but it just goes on a rampage. It's like a Go Nagai monster from Kekko Kamen or something. It just...
Yeah, but what if you, like, didn't have the talent of Go Nagai to make that work?
No, yeah.
And this is also one of the episodes that kind of begins the process of establishing Mia incorrectly, because the rest later in the show they're like supposed to treat her as stupid and self-centered and like an idiot, but in this episode she's like, okay, I've made this mess, I'm gonna clean it up. She doesn't succeed, but she does try. It's like, oh, so she's gonna be a nice person, and the next few episodes kind of build that up, and then the later episodes, like, that's not her characterization. I'm like, what? Nothing in the show makes sense.
I think also the focus is so often on showing underwear that you have all these perspective shots of like looking up at the characters, but the artists don't have the time or the scheduling to like actually draw perspective well, so everybody always looks really wonky.
Yeah.
It kind of has the feel of like one of those like how to draw anime books. It's both the early DigiPaint, so it's like a 480p and it's not going to get any more, resolution, and also just it looks like a joke anime, like one of those parody animes that fans make on YouTube, like that I forget his name, but it's like a joke thing.
The Aaron Hansen one.
Yeah, it's a
I think it was called Girl Chan in Paradise or something like that.
It's like also like Pugiru, which was like a short like 5-minute flash animation. So it's like really low production values, and it's almost nostalgic in a way, because it's like, oh, I remember this era of anime when things kind of looked terrible.
It's kind of worth mentioning that this was coming out right when digital coloring was becoming the norm, and they actually commented on it in episode 6. So that explains why it kind of looks bad, because they're kind of trying to get down digital techniques while still using old techniques, and they don't mesh.
But it's also just, hey, look, it's panties. Doesn't that turn you on, or isn't that nice? And
look,
it's
the
just
panties are pink. Look, this panty has strawberry on it.
Yeah, and there's
Consume
nothing
swine.
sexy about it. I mean, just to blatantly put it out there, it just doesn't look good. It's just like, okay, this is just people, and they happen to see their panties, and that's it.
It's like they think the entire anime community is just the dream version of Eric Foreman from that '70s show where the rope gets pulled and it rains panties, and he starts screaming, "Panties, glorious panties!"
Panties! Glorious panties!
And it should also note that the Kinky Monster doesn't pay off. It's like it's collecting this mass of panties and, you know, bras and stuff, and oh no, what's it going to do to it? And then it collects all of them, and then it generates this burst of energy, and it just becomes a bigger monster. That's it. That's the payoff.
It becomes an Evangelion ripoff.
Yeah. Which...
Except it has, like, light bondage.
And now I'm getting flashbacks to Infinite... what was that show? Infinite Fafnir. Which was... It's an absolutely worthless series, and...
Apparently the sequel anime they made years later was okay.
I didn't even realize they made a sequel.
Didn't you? Wait, did you review it?
I reviewed the first one. I definitely reviewed the first one. It was terrible, and I didn't think an anime would be having the Hot Springs episode as the second to last episode leading up to the climax, but Koi Koi 7 does it. So that tells you what league this is in. So that Infinite Fafnir is better than this speaks to where the shit meter is going.
Oh, I think I'm going to get confused with the sad robot mech show, like Fafnir or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Fafnir is an entirely different thing. Infinite Fafnir is like where this guy goes to an all-girls school and he has the power of the D.
It's one of those light novel adaptations.
And he has the power of the D so he can keep women from being attracted to dragons and then turning into dragons. That's the premise, and it doesn't have an budget at all, to the point where Water had 3 frames of animation, and it's just like flashing blue and white and black, and that's the animation for the water in one of the episodes. So it's a cheap, worthless, terrible anime, and yet somehow Koi Koi 7 manages to be worse.
Well, I will give Koi Koi 7 some slack because it came out in 2005 and they're figuring out new technology. There are points in the show where I think it looks good. It's mainly in episode 6 and 11, of course, but I also don't want to be that lenient on it because it sucks.
And also, a lot of its good visual points are references to other things. Like, they have the references to Gundam, and then they have references to Go Line, where they do the, you know, all their faces are on the screen and all of this stuff. And it's all referential, but it doesn't lead to anywhere, and that's my problem with it.
I'm kind of curious about who all the key animators were. It was something I couldn't figure out, because there were moments where I got vibes that some of these people will later go on to work on stuff like Code Geass, like the image I just put in the chat there, that face. That is a very Kimura face. That gives me the feel, like the detailed lines around the eyes, stuff like that. Like, I think some of the people who worked on this went on to better stuff, is what I'm saying.
It's possible. I mean, it's likely. I mean, I can see this being somebody's job to make it through the summer, pay for food. Hey, okay, you gotta eat. You gotta eat. You don't always get to pick the shows you work on.
Yeah. Alright, episode 4 is, like, fairly average and one of the first serious episodes. And it's establishing that the robot girl we thought was a robot is actually cyborg. They're all cyborgs. Okay, got it. Why didn't you tell me that in episode 1 or at least episode 2? But she doesn't remember things, and she's like different from the other cyborgs, and she can't get wet, making her the worst cyborg ever, because if she does, she like explodes.
It's a very like slice of life episode. The harem lead is taking her out. She's like the youngest looking, or at least for a while.
Yeah, I called her a proto-emoto.
That's funny. I like that. She's kind of like dead affect, kind of like Rei Ayanami or Ruri from Nadesco. She comments on how improbable and unlikely everything is. So that's definitely like Ruri.
Says incomprehensible as her catchphrase,
yeah.
And it's never funny.
So It's proto all of the badly written shows in like 2013, which were all, you have to be the hero that saves all of us. Oh, there you go, being the hero again. And that's the writing. It's, we are bad and we know we're doing
Fate
bad.
Stay Night.
I'm going to stay away from commenting anything Fate Stay because I don't want to get murdered.
So Wikipedia
Anyways,
has the summary as, it rains, Otome gets wet.
Yeah, because she wanted to help the puppy because she's a real girl. And she knows that the wet is bad, but she won't help puppy.
Yeah, she
So
wants
she
to help
give
the puppy,
Puppy
so she
umbrella.
gives up her umbrella and gets herself wet, even though she can't do that.
And then she kind of shows the main character emotions, like, I like you a lot, and she's like, trying to hide the fact she's about to fucking blow up.
Oh yeah, they kind of bond, and then she shorts out, and then they turn out that they have to wipe her memory because she's shorted. So she'll forget the whole
And then
bonding
she doesn't.
experience. Yeah, it's just
And she doesn't.
She doesn't have the memories, but she remembers the emotions.
And she hugs him like an Hamatora. Oh.
But
But it's
these
like the
aren't
first
even...
time the show has a serious tone, and it would have worked if it wasn't for the 3 episodes that came before it.
No, if it wasn't what immediately followed. See, they bring the dog home. And they give the dog a bath, so Hifumi, the green-haired girl...
Yeah, everyone who's watching this on YouTube, if you're looking at the title card, here comes the context.
Here's the part where you might get arrested for listening to this. So, Hifumi is giving the dog a bath, and the dog is happy, and then starts licking where he shouldn't be licking. And
Nakio's like, where is he licking?
even though, like, if you look at the dog, it's like barking, like completely away
Yeah.
from her. Like, it doesn't even show it. It just implies that it's happening, but it's not. So,
Yeah.
but
it doesn't even have the
Of
courage of
course.
Gantz.
No, Gantz had more than courage. Gantz didn't give a fuck.
Yeah. So, like, at this point, I'm like, okay, I don't like the show, but I get it. You know, I get it. I'm prepared to watch the rest of this. It's kind of nostalgic. It reminds me of the bad shows that I watched at Anime Club. They would just pick whatever. They'd show it.
And then episode 5.
And then it just goes off the rails.
Episode 5 was... it's basically just another pool episode, except this time on a space station. And they have the pool shenanigans twice. And it's clear they had production issues for this episode, or they just couldn't animate all the girls. So, like, there's a bunch of stills they pan over of the girls in the bikinis. And it's the saddest thing I've ever seen. But what makes this episode kind of skin-crawling to me is this is the episode we learn more about Miyabi, the hair girl. And it turns out she had overbearing parents, a lot of pressure on her, and the show... I feel like I need to give a trigger warning for this part. Trigger warning for talk of suicide. She attempted suicide at one point in the show, heavily implies it in the tackiest way possible in the episode where all the girls in the bikinis are bouncing their butts against the main character in the pool. It's a bad show.
And I also think it's very important that Miyabi's power is she can control her hair. Like, with like tentacles, or she can morph it into a giant umbrella. She can do all sorts of... It's like a gag thing. And then she's the one with the tragic backstory.
Bo.
Yeah.
Say what? Bo.
and it's just another case of...
We are a very serious show. Take us seriously.
So they had to
And then
enter
boobs.
the swimsuit competition because her hair had destroyed the house.
Oh yeah, because she freaked out because the main character was nice to her, and she didn't know how to handle it, and her hair exploded. I forgot that because it
Yeah.
wasn't funny.
And then she wins, but returns down the prize because she doesn't want to join the Goku 5.
And the wacky sequence happens.
And then she destroys the space station with her hair.
And another running joke that is so hilarious is Mia is rich, obviously, and all of her plans involve spending lots of money on these giant robots, space stations, all of this, and all of them get destroyed. But it's okay because she's rich.
I mean, that's a pretty standard anime staple. The whole elaborate robots, the rich student council person or whatever spending a lot of money, and then it all goes. So I mean that could work.
But
yeah, they just need to be in a different series.
But none of it goes anywhere, which I feel like a broken record.
It's amazing because like episode 11 even builds up that they're going to be important, and then no.
Again, they are the best characters, so you're kind of rooting for them they're entertaining failures, like Nanami from Utena, the kind of failure Ojo-sama. So they're definitely, they had the most potential.
Yeah, they're a good old-fashioned goldfish poop gang, as TV tropes would call it. I don't remember where they got that name. Then, of course, that brings us to episode 6, which is where the point where I was like, oh, maybe this show can actually be good sometimes? And I initially wrote it off because it presented itself as an episode about anime production in Koi Koi 7. And then I was amused by it. And I think it's because, like, the animation staff on it were allowed to have fun. Like, there were lively expressions and, like, weird go-nagi faces. And characters suddenly expressed with personalities. And there were jokes with structure that were occasionally funny, like the Moe baby being locked up in the fucking shack so she doesn't destroy everything by being clumsy. Or the tomboy... under the crippling stress of anime production, getting a fucking writing crop and threatening every single department she finds to get their work done. I was like, oh, this is amusing. I didn't know how to react to it at first because this show had drained all the life from me.
Well, I mean, it really does come out of nowhere. It's like, why is there an anime production episode now? And I guess it's about the tomboy girl who pulls out the guns, but it doesn't really develop her in like a backstory kind of way.
This is absolutely anime original content.
Oh yeah, I can believe it.
And I think what they did for the two major anime original episodes, this and 11, was just pick out the two characters who are the least developed so far in the manga and just have fun with them. So that's what they did with the tomboy, and decided that her new personality trait was fiendish troll thing. She's just lazy and gets the best faces, and then she realizes, oh fuck, I have a week to finish a fucking anime, and loses her mind and becomes a drill sergeant. And it's not great, but it's amusing, and for this show, it was the best thing at this point imaginable. And I was like, this is a moderately okay comedy episode. What the fuck is going on? Is this a different show?
It feels like a different show. I mean, just because it doesn't flow, but it was definitely an improvement.
Yeah.
And then you get to the ending of the episode.
Yeah.
The plot comes back, and it's bad.
It is bad. Because they've been working on this animation for the whole episode, and you're wondering what it is. And then they can't go enter this contest because it's too, terrible. They can't,
not terrible,
erotic. So
I actually do like that they build up to this joke in the first scene of the episode, where it's the lesbian who writes the pornography arguing with the director about her script, and you're like, and then when it gets to that, I was like, oh, but then you don't get to see it, and instead you get the plot scene where the edge girl turns out to have been like emotionally abused by some Aizen looking motherfucker.
Yeah, that turns out to be Tetsuro's actual father that they're gonna actually go with this time.
Wasn't she like on a cross or something?
Yeah, she was naked on a cross and getting threatened with a blade by Tetsuro's father.
So yeah, it was.
She wasn't
more...
on a cross, but she was crucified on like a bed, like a mechanical bed. The actual crucifixions come later.
Yeah, so it's like it switches between gags and then just edgelord stuff that comes out of nowhere. Nothing is ever built up. It contains every trope. It literally contains every trope.
Yeah,
episode 7 sucked. Surprise, but it sucks in a new way, where suddenly the series became kind of extremely homophobic and transphobic. The entire joke of this episode is that Tetsuro ends up getting paint on his clothes, so he has to wear girls' clothes and pretend to be a girl, and Mia falls in love with him, and the entire joke is, haha, Mia's love interest is a guy. Oh man. And when the guy actually expresses interest in femininity, for some reason the fucking Moe baby of all characters looks at him disgusted. I'm like, the fuck? Why are you the one acting like this? You don't even understand basic social concepts. Why would you have an opinion on gender?
It's just like so much of this episode just goes clunk.
Look, it's a Yuri trope from The Thing. We know what we're talking about. Look, it's a church like Strawberry Panic. Do you get it? She's a gay.
It's just not good. It's not funny. Doesn't do anything. It's just like
there was a mild Yuri trend during this era, so of course the heads had to cash in on it somehow, and none of them knew how. The best we got from that was fucking Kanazuki no Miko, and that is a disaster of its own. The manga, at least. The anime is a mess, but passable. The manga is a fucking disaster. Holy shit.
That's the lesbian shrine maidens, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like, the anime direction generally saved that source material. The manga was a mess, and then they made a manga sequel series down the line that was so bad, I think it got canceled after like 10 chapters, and the scanlation community just gave up completely fairly quickly. But mainly because it had a comedic rapist character who was a giant dude, so you know. I still have nightmares about that fucking garbage.
I think we should probably move on. I mean, the only thing is, Mia tries to sing and she's bad at it, and then we are introduced to...
there's the insert song, buy our shit.
Well, what's funny is she's really bad at singing, and again, that it makes her the most endearing character.
Well, the thing is, she isn't bad at singing. The singing's fine. The problem is the audio mixing does not match how all the other voices are audio mixed in the show. Yeah. So it comes off especially jarring. Like, if it was playing in the background, that'd be fine, but she's actually singing it in the show, so it takes you out of it because it doesn't sound like how everyone else has sounded when they talk.
And then I'm also saying in the notes that this is where the eye patch girl is now in the school, and her name is Salonius 28 because she's a robot.
Yeah, she's basically Skynet, but only for 2 people. And then she's like, oh no, I love one of these people. And then Not Aizen gave her a robot body and was like, hey, you go get that dick. You go get my son's dick. What? No, never mind.
Okay. And she actually sings to protect from the bad singing, so that's where the insert song, and she actually has the pretty voice, which... but it doesn't match what's going on, and it's even...
Oh, we were talking about Mia's bad singing. I actually forgot that existed.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mia...
I had to go through this entire show and just do some spot checks over what happened, because I forgot what happened when, and I forgot about half of the show, so I just had to write down little things. So that's where the insert song is, and it's where she sort of, Salonius number 28 becomes sort of Sharon Apple, which is, she is this thing who's been with Yayoi and Tetsuro their whole lives, so her emotional memory becomes Yayoi, and she decides to take it over, and she tries to do that by, like, doing, like, chaotic stuff with singing.
But I don't buy that she's at all like Asuka Yayoi, because she doesn't act like her.
No.
She doesn't have anywhere close to the same personality. She doesn't. The only thing they have in common is they both love the same guy, and that's it.
Yep.
And, like, she has that in common with fucking everyone else in the harem. Well, no, like 2 other girls in the harem, because they forgot to establish anyone else having interest in him. It's a mess.
I mean, this is when things start to go, like, even more off the rails, because you had the harem already. You were developing all the characters. It wasn't great, but you had a workable thing. And then now you're adding this new girl, and she thinks that
she's been hinted at throughout the entire series at this point, so you already knew she was coming and she was going to do plot important stuff. So, like, this doesn't come out of nowhere. It's just frustrating because the episodes don't use their time correctly.
No.
So you don't actually get to know anything else about any of the other characters. Episode 2 is a massive waste of everyone's time in particular. I'm not going to say that about episode 6 because that was the only good episode so far. Debatably good, but still, you know, above everything else we've had to sit through.
Yeah, and, you know, speaking of waste of time, then we get into episode 8, which recycles all of the jokes from episode 7. It recycles the songs from episode 7. It recycles everything except now, you know, Robot Girl is going psycho and destroying everything. And, you know, making everything nuts.
Yandere.
And that's the only difference.
And of course, her going crazy means that now every girl in the school is a lesbian and make out.
Yeah.
And of course, the terrible harem protagonist's dad is just sitting in a fucking maid cafe when this happens and all the girls are making out and just has a fucking all according to Kikaku face.
Drinking his tea.
Just according to my evil plan. I've done what feminism has been trying to do for years.
I don't. Yeah.
It's
a bad show.
I think the implication was that her feelings were like going out and infecting all the people in the school. But the problem is, why does they make them all want to kiss the girls?
I don't know. I mean, like, there's another thing, like, a little bit down the road in episode 12 where this thing engages, and now everybody's in love with Tetsuro and runs after him. So, you know.
And I have a whole other rant for that,
Yeah.
but we'll get there.
So,
but basically what happens is after Edge Girl basically one-shots every other character with no problem, including bringing back the lovely flashback of the suicide attempt, because of course.
And she only does that for that character. The rest of the characters, she just, you know, shocks them into commission. But for her, she decided to just be a dipshit for kicks.
And that is in the manga. Like, when I search for the manga, the page that always comes up is that page. So, yeah.
Yeah.
You can definitely blame this one all on the manga. And what solves the problem is Asuka going, "Hey, that's bad!" And then she brings out her useless angel wings that have done nothing of any use so far. And they make a light, and that apparently fries her brain. Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But
and then the main character's like, "No, you have to save her." Because
doesn't her eye patch fall off, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm so sad. I have a tragic story too." And then Tetsuro's like,
yeah, that's what causes her to freak out because she has the robot eye. And I will give the main character credit that he realizes something's clearly wrong with her, and she's not entirely guilty of what's happening. So it makes sense he would want to do mercy, and of course this gets her turned into a fucking orderly.
Yep.
That's
and a
when
little sister, Loli.
that's when my last little bit of hope dies.
She becomes a completely new character because her memory also gets wiped.
So yeah, they replace Edgelord girl with. They already have the one girl who can't get wet as the younger sister, but like we needed an even younger sister.
Because it turns out the author of the manga is a lolicon. Welcome to hell.
Keep going.
I'd given up hope at this point.
Episode 9 brings back the puppy, and it's owned by the lesbians now, and one of them named it Butter.
Jesus. Did that happen?
Yes.
Yes, it did
Because
happen.
I think this is the point where my brain started to fail, and I was like, am I starting to have strokes? Am I up too late? Am I too tired?
And they made it very clear that it did lick the open lesbian one down there at some point.
The sad thing is, that is about the
And
only
oh,
thing
and of course. Oh, and I should mention that the lesbians in this episode also did the same joke they did in episode 4, which is where they see the main character walking with the little girl and is like, he has a new girlfriend! And they call him a cradle robber here because, you know. And he has to explain to the little girl somehow what a cradle robber is without actually explaining it.
Yeah, the actual term that the subs used was cradle robber, which hasn't been around for... usually now they just use lolicon because people know what it means. But
well, this was 2005.
this is... Yeah, I mean, this is...
And also, you can't directly accuse these people of being pedophiles, or they get really mad. But it isn't because of this reason.
You didn't need to do this. You didn't need to do this show. This was... You didn't need this.
I'm pretty sure this was in the manga.
Yeah.
Oh, remember how the episode starts?
I probably blocked it out.
The teacher is having a clearly wet dream, and
Oh,
there's
God!
something under...
That.
And the loli just pops out, though they do make it clear the loli had nothing to do with her because she's still going on about it, even though she's already popped out and the loli's all bored, and she's like, the loli was just under the covers for some reason.
And she... Well, it almost looks like a bird. Well, it doesn't look... I mean, it's like... The way she comes out, it's like she's being
Oh my
born.
god, that was foreshadowing the return of the puppy.
It's just so...
They were teasing you like, hey look, it's the puppy again. No, it's just the loli. And then the puppy came back.
This show.
Fuck this show.
This show.
I actually, other than those two parts, this was a fairly uneventful whatever episode. Like, it's just the character now named Gontai for some reason, just walking around, talking with the other girls. Some comedy happens, and she goes to school, and the rich girls, of course, want to help her, and then Mia is just suddenly acting completely out of character of what's been built up so far. Because remember, Mia also let when she found out one of the girls was sick, even though she hates them, she let them rest at the ER. So we've established at this point that she is a good person, and then she's just calling like a child shabby. Lost child they found wandering around school, and she's just insulting her, and it's like, what are you doing? And it does lead to, like, I think what was like the third or fourth funny joke in this whole show, not counting episode 6 and 11, where the loli breathes on her forehead and starts making fun of it.
Oh, she's polishing the forehead. I remember that now.
Yeah, that's it.
I have to be
That
reminded
actually
of
did make me
things
laugh.
that I've blocked out. But yeah, that was kind
But
of
the
funny.
rest, yeah.
And
But the rest of the episode was bad.
She was very offended to hear that she had a big forehead. But
Zakura Haruno reference. Episode 10, Magic is Real. And it was actually kind of hard to figure out magic was real because the very premise of this episode, since it revolved around the girl who had no actual personality established so far, the green hair girl, who was strong, liked to farm, called people nerds sometimes, and I think that's it. Just was suddenly really good at math, and everyone thought this was something's different about her. And I was like, who is this? I honestly don't know what character this is. I forgot.
The Wikipedia says of Hifumi, she rivals Otome for the most flat chest. So that's her character trait. That's what we're scraping the bottle with the barrel for.
She is the most pointless character, and it turns out she somehow found a mandrake in like a forest somewhere, and it turns out magic is real because the mandrake screamed at her and then changed her personality and gave her gradual memory loss, which is why now she's letting her hair down and I guess other things that are unlike her personality if she had one to begin with. I don't know.
Yeah,
it was a very confusing episode because I couldn't figure out what the plot was, and then one of the rich girls was like, got mad because she got an eraser thrown at her because she didn't fucking sit in her seat, and another rich girl tries to explain it to her, but it's like, no, it's the girl who's good at math's fault, and like wants to humiliate her. So it begins in an understandable way where she's just put her in this outfit she can control that forces her panties to always be shown, but then it gets confusing, and she's like staging her in like a nurse's uniform and taking pictures, but they're not particularly embarrassing or erotic. She's just in funny poses, and I'm like, not even funny poses, like cosplay poses, like the cat pose, and like, what's happening?
And that's not even the worst of it.
Did you forget the jokes?
Yeah. Also, the entire thing is somewhat of a Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle reference. Because
What?
Yeah. It's the visual reference of her, because her, Akio and Hifumi are best friends. And, of course, they established this. Right. But she is losing her memory of Akio, and how they do this is they show the visual of her looking up at her face, and it's like darkness, and that's like how like Sakura is forgetting her memory in Tsubasa. And I don't know, and again, this is a reference to something that goes nowhere. It's just a reference to something.
Weren't they childhood friends or something?
Yeah,
it's like
something like that.
Remember how you found out? Remember their story about why they were childhood friends?
Yes, and this is what's going to get us arrested.
Moving on.
This I would argue this was if it wasn't for the existence of episode 13 in its entirety, that would be the single worst scene in the series by far.
And I suppose we have to explain this, or we don't, but
I'm not doing it.
Okay. Well, let's just say it's very To Catch a Predator, and it's both of them relating to each other in the shower, as underage people, and talking about their genitals. So, that's it. That's, you want to be a sleazy shitbag and find out the rest? Watch the show.
I blocked that out. All I remembered was the girl that Gentai playing with the mandrakes at the end. That's just all I remember from this episode, because I completely
That was
blocked.
okay.
That was kind of funny. She kept like finding a whole bunch of them or something. Whatever. It erased my memory. The mandrake erased my memory, so it works.
Episode 11.
This was a good episode, and I liked it a lot. And I'm kind of mad it's in the show because this show doesn't deserve to have good things.
I liked part of it. But it's the one I most forgot about, because I'm like, oh yeah, it had this
understandable.
Joke. I mean, because
it is. The reason it stuck with me is because all the faces are amazing. All of them are amazing and perfect, and I love them. They put Hifumi back in that face she had in episode 6 with like the closed eyes and the big mouth open, like she's just there and accepting it. And of course the tomboy is getting all the crazy faces again, and she gets a lot of weird expressions. of all sorts. Like a lot of stuff that looks like it'd be out of Gonagi's stuff. Like even her shocked face is weird, where it's all like she's all kind of squished in, or her mouth is all wobbly. It's just a good anime face episode, and it helps that the jokes in it actually are jokes, which is very rare for this show. There's like barely any perverted jokes, and like the few they have kind of work. I hate myself for laughing at this the one joke the tomboy does, where she's trying to like come up with a story of what the rich girl is probably teaching Gontai, and it works because the punchline actually has really good timing, even though the punchline is morally vile, and because how she actually portrays Mia in her mind with the big swirly goggles, and she smiles at one point, and she just has a big stupid golden grill covering her teeth. I'm like, oh my goodness. That's one of the best images anime has ever given me.
My favorite joke would be when Akio is giving instructions to their opponent about how to make the entrance on I will punish Mew, and she's dressed as a cat, and it's like, no, you've got to use the hips more, and it's just and then she does it, and it's like, oh my god, you're so amazing, and
she starts crying, and then she's like, don't worry, heroines don't cry.
But
that was great.
It works because it is set up, it is consistent with the character that we have, because Akio is at least the most consistent character we have in this series.
Yeah, and Small Drills has been established as the most shy of the rich girls. Because every time she's appeared, she's always a background character, just not it. Like in episode 10, where she's the only voice of reason among these idiots. where the one with the twin tails wants to get revenge for something that's entirely her fault. So it's already established she's the shy one. So you have everything you need there for the joke to work.
So
it works.
This is where the show actually did its work and actually set up and paid off. And
of course, this was the episode directed by the guy who only did one other thing, where he directed a 4-minute short film. And I wish he did more stuff, because this was actually really good.
Yeah,
I think
it was
there was a very
bad.
Animation-wise, I mean.
They're going through the house, and it has all these giant rooms, the other dimensions, like an ocean room and a mountain room and a sky room. And one of the things that I laughed at was they were looking at the ocean room, and they saw a whale in the distance, and then it just immediately cuts briefly to one of the henchwomen swimming underwater. It's an abrupt cut, and it's playing menacing music, and it was just really funny because they're looking at the whale, and then it just cuts to her. So, it was.
Yeah, it was actual comedic timing in this episode. It was so weird to see.
And they had to go in the castle because they kidnapped Gentai, and then Mia decides that when they rescue Gentai, that she's going to break up the Goko 5, and then she decides not to when her friends refuse to abandon her. So again, character development is delayed. Nothing happens.
And then the plot happens because Big Drills, who turns out has been established at this point to be a kind of a double agent, I think, who's kind of looking after the situation at the school, knows something bad's about to happen, so she tells Mia and the other girls and warns them that they may lose their lives, but they all agree to fight anyways, and nothing comes of this.
No.
Absolutely nothing.
The next episode, they fight Koi Koi 7 again,
and
nothing happened.
And Wakamoto gets lines.
Yes. Norio Wakamoto gets the lines where bad things are happening, and this doesn't sit well. And
I honestly kind of liked the design of his character.
All I could see was ballsack.
But
it was interesting because it was very different. It wasn't the very generic anime look.
Yeah, it kind of matches that he's in technically Mia's grandfather, I think, or father, one of the two. Because,
all the other designs
she's a very silly character, so of course he'd look a little silly.
All the other designs are very how to draw anime.
Oh yeah.
Buy a book on learn how to draw anime at home, and he kind of has a different style.
So at this point, the plot is finally happening. A thing suddenly happened because this is an anime original ending, of course, because the manga was still going. But they definitely weren't getting any more episodes of this shit. The person they decided is now the dad of the main character steals 2 robot girls, and one of them looks vaguely similar to Callan Stanfield later, who would appear later, like 1 or 2 years later in Code Geass. And incidentally, has a power that's basically Geass in this show. Okay. And it's like, okay, fuck you, I'm gonna go get the thing I want that hasn't been established yet.
The opening of the door to space-time.
Sort of. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
But then, the first half of this entire episode, waste your fucking time. It's just the same jokes you've been seeing the entire show, just replayed, and occasionally a plot thing happens, and also you learn that the teacher dated the terrible dad as a child, and
yeah, and the thing is, everybody knows this is happening.
He
Everything
looks the same when she was a child too. That's the fucked up part.
Yeah, I was trying to get away from that, but
anime original content, everyone.
yeah. Have a seat. Have a seat.
But yeah, basically nothing happens for the first 12 episodes. In the first half of this episode, and then in the last half, they try to finally decide. Oh no, Asuka actually had character the entire time. Look at this character death we suddenly that's been there the entire time that we suddenly just didn't pull out of our fucking ass. Where she's like jealous of all the other girls who are interested in the main character. That's definitely not a thing we stole from every other harem anime in existence. And it's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
And of course, on Twitter, this came out as, shut the fuck up, turf. And then, of course, this is where things get weird, because, like, in episode 7, or was it 8? No, episode 8, where everyone became the gay, that was implied to be against, like, the feelings of this character affecting them, but when Gendo Ikari activates the fucking Stargate, of course, has a cross over its computer, because Evangelion, guys, do you remember that show? Mm-hmm. What happens next is that all the girls suddenly fall in love with the loser, but it's the exposition we're getting from the teacher is implying that they're now acting on their true desires, including the established lesbian couple.
Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah. This show's bad.
It is.
And it turns out what the guy is trying to do is just the exact same thing Kendo Ikari wanted, just to get his wife back. Oh, and I should mention that the wife character has the exact same design as the main character in the Maid Harem comedy series. This person also did for the original manga guy also did. Not to be confused with the other Maid comedy series, which was not a harem.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so they put in a reference, I guess, in this terrible, terrible ending.
Yeah,
and then Asuka's like,
and then episode
the mom or something, and she has blue hair. I was so confused.
Oh yeah, Asuka got crucified in order to open the Stargate to pull out the angel mom. Evangelion.
Yeah,
and it's like building up that there's actually going to be stuff that happens in the final episode, because like the 2 robot girls are actually really tough, and Drill Girls warns them that they'll only have like 0.5 seconds when they're at full power to take them down before everything goes bad. Like, oh, is something finally going to happen?
No.
And then episode 13, and it starts with pointless beach shenanigans.
Yep.
with no context.
I was trying to
also
understand if it was like a hallucination or like a parallel universe, or I was probably thinking too hard about it.
I was thinking about this myself, but then I noticed that the episode remained like this for 19 minutes.
Yeah.
For 19 minutes of the final episode, it's nothing but shenanigans on a beach. It's never explained how anyone got there or why the two evil robot women are now robot lolies.
Yeah, they're there, but they're the same age as Gentai.
Or why Mia and her friends are like in like a submarine doing stuff, but from their perspective, they're in space.
Yeah, and there are space battleship Yamato references because they're wearing the outfits that have the arrows that point at their crotch.
The lesbians are there for some reason. Okay. And I got very mad and just didn't actually watch this episode, only skipped through it on the Crunchyroll player to find when the actual plot happened, and it took 19 fucking minutes. When, like, the dad showed up in this world with the angel mom, and for some reason he's talking to the girl we thought was a robot originally, but was just another cyborg, but acted like a robot for some reason. And she realizes that the angel is the main character's mom, and then it actually flashes back to what's going on in the real world. And the big battle that was built up happened off screen, and the robot women are dead, and everyone else is beat up, and Tetra is screaming, and then the angel mom appears and smiles, and there's a flash, and that's your explanation, fuckhead. Fuck you.
Goodbye.
How dare you expect closure from this? and of course they end up at a hot springs, and the three lolies get nude at some point. I also did not watch any of this because nothing of any value was happening, and it's implied that the apocalypse has happened by the dialogue from the dad.
Actually, one slightly interesting thing happened. I guess the island was run by Goku 5, so they kept heating up the hot spring and then causing a snowstorm to happen, so that they would be trapped between a snowstorm that was getting colder and the hot spring which was getting hotter. Which is weird.
An excuse for more nudity.
It's weird, and like, you might have been able to do something interesting with that just because it's weird. I don't know, that's what sticks in my mind.
Nope.
Yeah. Nothing happens.
And of course, the show ends with with that not robot girl going incomprehensible yet again. End credits.
Hey, the jokey jokes.
I think what they tried to... This was... A lot of shows around this time were doing kind of weird out there endings like this. Like, remember in... I'm not going to go too much into spoilers, so don't worry about this if you haven't seen these. Remember in Melody of Oblivion, where the second to last episode, it's like all the characters are appearing in a karaoke bar.
Yeah.
But with occasional flashes of what's actually happening, and they're all talking to each other in a karaoke bar, but also within the context of what's happening within the show, and sometimes with actual dialogue.
Yeah.
Or like, of course, the ending of Evangelion, which is obviously the big inspiration here, which is taking place entirely in a mind world. They're trying to do something like that, but they don't have talent, and they're also trying to use it as an excuse to still have more nudity and terrible jokes nobody likes, and it doesn't work. It gives no one closure, nothing is funny. It's just like, what are you doing? Are you trying to be as confusing as possible so people mistake this for being interesting or subversive? Because the sad part is it kind of worked, because people just weren't, for some reason this actually kind of worked. Look at the Crunchyroll comments for this episode, and like,
I don't want to.
It's clearly a disappointment, but also people kind of mistaking this for like something intentional, not just we didn't know how to make an actual ending for this, so this was bad.
It's terrible.
Well, and of course, I forgot to mention that the music and the sound effects are the fucking worst on the...
Oh!
They use Hanna-Barbera cartoon sound effects all over the series, including the fucking cartoon Spring.
Yeah.
It's baffling.
The thing is, Nia Under 7 uses this, but it has a point to it. Like, it's that all the characters are so cheap, their sound effects are from 40 years ago. That's the joke in Nia Under 7. There is no joke about the sound effects here. They're just bad because they're bad.
This was an embarrassment for everyone involved, I'm sure. I think the reason that one guy who's only done this and one other thing has never done anything else is because the second thing he did was for Quick Quiz 7.
Yep.
Oh,
well, like the opening lyric in the opening song is like, horrible images appear before my face, and with each new episode, I was like, that accurately describes this.
Unfortunately, I couldn't be bothered to actually watch the opening because the singing was the fucking worst.
I didn't think it was bad. What bothered me was when they got to the chorus and it was the Haribo jingle.
What?
Haribo. And
oh my goodness.
It is. Just if you listen to them side to side, it's like, it's not exact, but it's there.
This is one of the... I don't want to say this is the biggest anime disaster I've ever seen, because I've sat through Magical Warfare.
I think
and Magical Warfare is like in a whole other level of existence.
It avoids being a great disaster because it never has any purchase as like a real show, because it keeps adding new things and destabilizing itself, so there's never like a feeling of like disappointment that they could have had something. It's just a weird disaster.
I was considering putting this in like my top 5 for the worst anime I've ever seen. I think the list right now would be Shuffle, Magical Warfare, Fractal, the first season of Ikitozen, and I'm actually kind of drawing a blank on what number 5 would be, but I want to leave that space open because this show did manage 2 good episodes, one average, one I actually enjoyed a lot. So by that merit alone, I cannot put it in my top 5. But it's a hard 6, and it's gonna fucking stay there because the lows in this series are, Jesus Christ, I didn't think anime could be this bad. And I mean, have you seen the first season of Ikitozen? I thought I hit the bottom of the barrel at this point, but no.
I've heard about it. It's definitely something.
It's actually a similar situation to this because they took a manga that was probably not good, but at least passable. Like, some of the manga panels I have seen kind of present some of the scenes we saw in this better, for example. But the Ikitozen first season anime decided to take itself very seriously and added in incredibly ill-conceived plot changes, including one of the most infamous, horrible scenes in anime period that involved one of the girlfriend of one of the main characters that I really don't want to get into. It's genuinely disgusting, but this was a very similar situation, except it went the opposite route. It decided to be more comedic, and the result is it took itself so unseriously all the time that it couldn't build a foundation, or it just forgot to build a foundation out of sheer ineptitude. It's... wow, I've never seen a show that's been so nothing before, and I've seen shows that were just supposed to be nothing. It's
very insubstantial. I'll completely have forgotten about it by next week.
I won't, because bad stuff is so...
I mean, yeah, there were a couple
bad
moments that I'll remember, but like, I remembered so much stuff when you talked about it. I was like, oh yeah, that did happen. Because I just didn't remember so much.
I think I'm going to remember enough to hate this forever.
Thing is,
this is a hard category 5 for me. Jesus Christ.
The thing for me is, it is hard to categorize it because it's a combination of so many terrible things I've watched, and it's all at once. Like, a few of the things it reminded me of was Infinite Fafnir, which is, a garbage, cheap, worthless series that nobody should watch. And then
a light novel adaptation, of course.
Yep. And then there's My Wife is the Student Council President, which is a comedically worthless show that just bumbles through its punchlines, and its only selling point is it has actual nudity, and that's one of the points here. It's actual nudity, and then it just goes too far with it, and well, I'm worried some people have files on us now, but it just reminds me of the bottom of the barrel, and it's just a mixture of all of it, and I don't know where it comes out to because it's so hard to unravel all the things it screws up and throws into the pot. And it's just like
just think about the worst moments you saw on this show and let that decide it for you.
Let's see. Is 4's bad, right? It's like 1 to 4. Yeah,
it's 1 to 5.
1 to 5. So 4.
Category 1 to category 5.
So I can't
being
say it's 5. 5 if I'm gonna go 5, it's gonna be like Arjuna. These people should know better. The creator of Macross should know better than to make this offensive, awful, horrendous piece of shit. And they have a journeyman director and people who never didn't really write anything ever again, and some voice actors who probably have had better work. But
and you could tell that the animators were trying when they actually got a chance to try.
But it's at the end of the day, it's terrible. I don't think it's the worst of the worst, so I'll just give it a hard 4.
I'm gonna stick with 5 myself though, because the lows are bad enough, especially the ending, for me to not give this any fucking mercy. It did manage 2 good episodes, so it's gonna be spared a place on my top 5, but fuck. And what about you, Tom?
I'd probably have to give it a 5. There were, like I said, there were funny moments. There were moments I laughed. There were moments that I thought oh, that could possibly work if it was in a good show. But the whole thing was climbing a vertical wall. It was just hard to get purchased in anything. And like I said, I watched the last 3 episodes kind of right before this, and I was like, did I forget something? Am I did I not get enough sleep? Is my mind failing me? Or is it the show that's not making sense? Because I've sat through some pretty bad shows. I watched Dupote, I watched Magical Warfare, and I was able to pay attention, but this just kind of flowed through my mind.
Well, yeah, of course you paid attention to Magical Warfare. That was a fucking trip.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to grab onto, but this just was just like pouring water through a sieve. I mean, there's a couple things I remember. The worst parts, obviously, and a couple of the better gags that I thought were funny, because it kind of throws everything at the wall. So many tropes are in there.
It's no time to be feeling good.
Something has to work. When you try every trope, you'll occasionally stumble onto 4 or 5 jokes that are yeah, that one worked. But yeah, there's no real handhold here, so I can't give it any credit for being good. It's a 5.
All right, I feel good about all these scores. I'll even agree with Joe's 4 because, I did mention, there are aspects of the show that I kind of like, but it's just everything else.
Yep.
This one did not break me because, once you've seen the first season of Ikki Tousen, it's pretty hard for a show to break you. But, this is easily the worst show I've seen in this current run of Heavy Storms. And when I compare it to the old run of Heavy Storms, that's probably still Magical Warfare. And that was our 3rd episode, I think. Jesus. 3rd or 4th. But yeah, this was bad. If you like to torture us with more terrible anime you know of that may be worse than this. We already told you how to make commissions. Check the description. And we may do non-commission episodes as we get time, but it's not going to be a regular thing because I do have a lot of other projects I have to deal with and a lot of real-life stuff to deal with. So that is the situation now. I want to keep doing Heavy Storm, so if you want us to keep doing it, give us money, obviously, and you can also back me on Patreon. If I can get to $400 a month, I will try to make Heavy Storms a regular series again. Right now, my current goal is 100 to make a book of my full course essays and with book exclusive content. So that's the situation. And is there anything else you two want to add?
Koi koi!
Okay.
I guess I just should say I guess the koi koi was a reference to Hanafuda because the opening has like the Hanafuda, but that didn't tie into anything. So
anime.
Yeah.
And we will see you for the next Heavy Storms.
Mike Rowe went to a real Ford dealership service department